welcome to Dignified Resilience. I'm so excited to have as my guest a film director, Blerta Basholli, with me today. Blerta is a filmmaker from Kosovo who tackles gender and social issues through her movies. She was educating in film directing at Kosovo's Arts Academy of Pristina and subsequently earned a Master of Fine Arts in Film and Television in New York University. Her latest movie, Hive, is one of the 15 films shortlisted for Best International Feature Film at the 2022 Oscars. Films from 92 countries were eligible in the category. It's really exciting. The film also won many awards so far at the Sundance Film Festival last year, was shown at major festivals around the world. Oscars is just the latest, though, of course, great recognition. And just before New Year's, I spoke with a friend from London, Teuta, who reminded me and told me about this film, and she was going to watch it. And she said, maybe you can write about it. And so then I frantically looked over platforms where I can see the film, and I was very happy to find a place where I can rent it here in the United States, and was very excited when Blerta found time to come here and join me and tell our listeners and viewers more about this film. We'll talk about it all. First, welcome, Blerta. Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations, and how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for having me, and thank you for all the nice words.
Of course. So the film is inspired by the true story of Fahrije from Krusha village in Kosovo. She's a woman who lost a husband during the war in Kosovo in the 1999. She keeps searching for him because he's missing, just like 1,625 people still officially unaccounted from what I researched from the information in December last year. And in order to keep her family going and to ensure livelihood, she comes up with the idea to how to establish a cooperative. That's not easy. She experiences all sorts of hardships. Tell us, Blerta, how did you learn of Fahrije's story, and how did that idea come to fruition?
We heard this story about her on TV while we were still in US, and it's actually my then boyfriend, now my husband, heard the story. Luckily, he listens to news, and Fahrije, besides doing all the amazing things, she was quite present in the media as well. So she told her story. She didn't keep that story hidden. So she told the story about the war. She was very active about doing something about finding the missing people in general. And then she also talked a lot about how she built the business, the obstacles and everything. So that's how we came. She was present in the media. We got to hear her story. And then when we came back to Kosovo, we went to meet Fahrije in person and ask her if she wants us to do a story about her, a film about her. And in a way, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure if she's going to want us to do a film about her, because I knew that people did a documentary with her. So sometimes people just get tired of the film thing. So I was like, maybe she's not going to want, but I wanted to meet her anyway, just to really tell her what amazing things she did and how proud she makes me, and how maybe to even encourage her more. But it's not that she really needed my encouragement, because I ended up being the encouraged one, because she's such a strong person and she's really inspiring to just talk to her, and she really didn't need to be even more like encouraged, because she does have that in herself. So we went to meet her and asked her, and luckily I worked with Ulka Goshi before, and casted Ulka even before starting to write the script, even before getting the rights to the story. So we went together with Ulka, another friend of ours, Armand, and my husband Artan, to meet her. And because she knew Armand and Ulka, they're like famous actors, Fahrije was really open from the beginning. So we had her trust from the very first meeting, and she accepted immediately and worked with us since then. So that was like really an amazing meeting. We spoke for several hours from the first time we met her, and that's how it started.
Yeah, and you mentioned Gil Kagashi, who did such a super remarkable job of playing Fahrije. And in the story, in the film, we see how she goes against the wishes of her family, father-in-law, daughter, people in her village at the beginning. And then she has support of few friends, and then slowly she gets the support and of other women as well. And doesn't that also mean and remind us of the necessity of leaders like Fahrije, who had it in her and she didn't give up, allowing others who were scared to slowly come in. She didn't give up from them either, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she always mentions that without the support of the women, she couldn't have done it. But of course, she was the leader. She was the visionary. Fahrije didn't have a chance to study and go to the university. So I'm not even sure. I don't think she even finished secondary school. And yet she decided to do something for herself. And she decided to do it together with the women, which was not easy as well, because it was a post-war, a traumatic society. So everybody was really, it was really chaos to be in Kosovo after the war. Like the happiness of freedom, all of a sudden too many choices to do something, and then the pain for for the loss of many people. And a lot of people also lost their houses. Let's say Fahrije, and a lot of people lost their houses as well, besides losing their family members. So in that sense, it was very chaotic, and people were really hard to deal with, because these women were really resisting. But Fahrije did not give up on her dream. She did not give up on convincing the women to join her. But when they did, they were like really good community that help each other. It's really good chemistry. It's really lovely to even see them even today, the way they work, the way they joke, the way they I mean, I'm sure a lot of times they still cry because Fahrije and a lot of other women still haven't found their missing people from their families, but still they found a way to move on together. And that's really amazing. And that's really amazing that she didn't give up, because as you said, if she had given up, then nothing would have happened for any of them. But she just found the strength to always be able to stand up and continue no matter what, no matter how many obstacles she had on the way. Because I always use this expression of, like, I think like giving up was knocking on her door every day, every minute, and she had all the obstacles and the pain for having lost her husband and not having him there, because everything would have been easier in a patriarchal society. Everything would have been easier if he had been there. So for her, it was the pain of not having him there, but also the pain of missing the one that you love and dealing with everything else. And she did it. She found the strength and just stayed on her feet and continued to move on.
And so Fahrije is a beekeeper, obviously, but the title of the film, Hive, is a good reflection of the community that you mentioned as well. How did you come to the title of the film? How did you decide to give it that name?
Well, I wanted a title that really reflects something of what she does, of the community, and connected with the bees and everything. And my friend, who's a script writer, Krusha, he came up with a title, to be honest. And in Albanian, even the way it sounds, Zgjoj, to me, it sounds like the meaning of the actual hive, you know, like Zgjoj, like Zgjua, like something that you put people together. And Fahrije felt like the bee queen. I mean, she was able to convince the women, be patient with them. She was their leader. She was their psychologist, because they would gather together and cry. And as soon as the women would cry, she decided to play music for them and didn't let them cry. She told them, let's start dancing. And then she took them and went to have a coffee in the village coffee place, and where usually only men have coffees, and people would look at them, and she was like, I don't care, I'm gonna have a coffee every day here. And she would gather the women and went. And even just that act, a simple act of having a coffee in a coffee place at the village, it's an act of standing up for yourself and doing something about it, because they were in pain. And she was saying, like, we were going crazy. So she was like, we needed to do something for ourselves. We needed to do it to stay sane, because we had children to raise. So in that sense, she was like, we couldn't afford to go crazy. Like we had to stay sane, work and provide for our kids, because then we would have lost them, and then it would have been too late. So in that sense, I really just wanted, how can I wrap up that with a title like that will describe her, describe the community. Plus she worked with bees and later on with all the women in Ivar. So I thought, I mean, a lot of people had a problem with the English version of it, as a Hive sounded a little bit like maybe horror film or something, but I was like, oh, I will just keep it, because it was that name from the beginning, and I think I really identified with it.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful and intriguing film, because first when we see just the beginning of the trailer and we see Hive, we see her as a beekeeper, but there's so much more going on in the film afterwards. And she also kept on fulfilling her duties towards her father-in-law Haji, who is a very complex character as well. She lives with her and 2 kids, and seeing such stories, and this is one from so many, right, across the region, if I can add, in Kosovo as well, who have had to deal so much with the loss, is inspiring and commendable, of course. And on top of everything, like you said, there is one dialogue with a woman who works for international organization, and Fahrije tells her, we don't need funds, we don't need organization, we need work, we're going insane, don't you see, none of us are okay, like you say. So there is that drive both to provide for the family, but also to feel productive in a way, and so to see that combined with grief, so much grief, I was curious, how did you, because the grief is both obvious and subtle, how did you decide about conveying grief to the viewers?
Well, there is a word that I sometimes use, is like the absence of the husband is so present for them. Because first of all, they loved their husbands and they're missing them because they lost someone that they love. They lost the father of their children, living in a patriarchal society, and you don't need anybody behaving, you have the man. So in that sense, for me, I thought that I kind of tried to, I luckily I didn't lose anyone during the war, but we've witnessed and seen a lot, and I just really wanted to be able to understand this missing of this husband from many point of views. Like one day he's not, you're mad and sad because he's not there, because the society is prejudicing you. One day you're mad and sad because you're missing him. One day I'm sad because the children are missing him. So in a way, I thought that every corner of the house, you can feel his absence, and how do you deal with that, and how do you continue when you have that every day and every moment in your life. So I kind of wanted that to be present, but when you're living with it, it's not always as obvious. And then these women, it's not that they really were expected to express their inner emotions and how they're feeling, and whether they're missing someone because it was their partner, whether they have any needs, like, I mean, let's not even say sexual needs, but just the need to have someone next to them who was their loved one. In general, it wasn't expected from them to like talk about it, and it wasn't expected for them to work or to be happy about anything, because they were just really expected to stay at home, cry all day, and grieve and mourn for their husbands. And in a way, I was like, how do you continue with all those expectations, and in a society and culture where a lot of things are kind of subtexted rather than said directly. So I wanted to use that as a language of the film, because it's a society that I've grown up with, and I know how I've been very close. I am very close to my father even today, and I've been always, and I think I got the love for filmmaking from him. But when it came to talking about relationships and things like that, he would say things to me let's say for an ex-boyfriend or someone that I broke up with, but in a very indirect way, very indirect. He just really wanted to console me and to make me feel better, but it was never directly spoken. I spoke to my mom, but not to my father. So it was this kind of way of communicating that I really wanted to use as a language and symbolic of the film, and didn't want to express a lot, because also Fahrije is such a strong character. She's like really talking about everything she's went through, but in a very calm and stoic kind of way that I kind of wanted to feel that in the film as well.
And there are so many details, for example, when how you show how she is thinking late at night, early in dawn. We have her kids in the scene next to her, in the shower, a very moving, heartbreaking scene. Even when she sees her son, she looks at her son at one point, and I have 3 boys, and I'm thinking she's probably thinking of her husband or the future, and where is the father as well. And when you mentioned that grief, I thought it was very interesting and important that you portrayed, for example, the resistance of the father-in-law to give blood for DNA, because so many people are just trying to cope, right, with that absence in so many different ways. Some people can't give away that opportunity, that possibility that they might find somebody. Others want to find, and I always try to portray the sensitivity of different ways of coping and experiencing traumas in the region. So I'm curious to ask you, how was Fahrije's reaction to the film when she saw it, and also how was the film received in Kosovo, in a way that, of course, you're depicting the country around 2000, right? And now we're in 2022. Things obviously change, but I'm curious, has the film sparked conversations about some societal norms that you address in the film?
Well, it did in a way. I mean, I just wanted to go back a little bit to the father character, because I love him. But you also mentioned, and yes, it's for me, it was really important to talk about these issues. I mean, you're from Bosnia, and we've been through so much. And then I know people from here sometimes are tired of talking about these topics, although my film indirectly, quite directly for the missing people, but it's not like a war film. It's a post-war film, but still with a lot of casualties from the war. So in a way, I kind of wanted to think about how these people, how they deal with the grief, and like, how do you accept that someone is gone, and how do you give the hope away in a way, and do you want to do that? And for me, that was really interesting, talking to forensic doctors, that they told me cases when people didn't want to give a DNA because they just didn't want to accept the truth. They didn't want to know. They wanted to live in that hope that they're going to come back. So they didn't even want to know, even when it was for sure someone that they have lost. When they found the body, some people didn't even want to go and identify. And that must be really hard for all the people in Bosnia and Kosovo, or any war in the world. People who have gone through that must be really hard. And that's the complexity I wanted to show with the father character, and with everyone. That even Fahrije, who wants to know throughout the whole film, towards the end of the film, we realize that maybe she's not even ready to know. I mean, she's insisting to know, but maybe she's not even ready to know. So it's this kind of ways that for these people, I don't think there's a really closure to their story. Even if these people come alive, I don't know if it's going to be. It's still going to be hard. Of course, it's going to be a happy moment, but probably very hard. And in terms of Kosovo, I expected, to be honest, I expected more reaction and more debate about the norms. We've shown the film in Kosovo. We've shown the film in like Switzerland and Germany, where there was a lot of audience from Kosovo. So we had, let's say, a reaction from a guy from Krusha, a mother who was living in Switzerland, and he disagreed with the film. He said you portrayed the man of Krusha really badly. That's not true. And so he was very touched. And I was really, I was there when he said it, and I was really, it made me sad that I made him feel like that in a way. but I could really understand his point of view because he was from the village. He's a man. He lives abroad, and his nostalgia and his love for his hometown, of course, it hurt him even more than many other people. But then right after him, there was a reaction of a person that he was a man again, and he was like, listen, it hurts. The truth hurts, and it hurts me to see this. But thank you for telling this story. So, and it was a lot of cases that like this guy, from women and men, who really, it hit them hard to see it, because we do want them, of course, we have a lot of stories from the war to tell how what people went through, and like telling a story of a woman empowerment in a patriarchal society where people prejudiced her, and it doesn't feel, for some people it doesn't feel right. It feels like we could have said something else through a war film, and I agree with that. I think we should make a lot of more films about what we went through, and we totally will. But in that sense, there were some small debates, not a lot. Mostly people were really, really inspired by her story and really supported the film, and just really were happy that we chose to discuss this issue, because we live in a patriarchal society, and I think many societies do in one way or another. And even in US, women are still dealing with equality or abuse in one way or another. I don't think we as a world, we're not really equal in general. So there's a lot more to be done in many ways, in certain societies more than others. But I think that's also was the key that a lot of people related to it, I think.
And Hive is the second film from Kosovo ever nominated for Oscar, right? In 2016, there was Shok, which was nominated in the short film category. So from what I read, is it correct that this film took you 5 to 6 years to make it happen? Because also there was a funding, of course, not issue, but there is a whole endeavor of finding funding for in our part of the world, in that part of the world, right? And so now that you also said we have so many stories to tell, my question is, do you think that films like this, because there is a huge potential and there's actually a huge amazing output in terms of films and artistic products coming from that region, will there be a movement or more support both from public and private sector for more funding for films? I saw that Kosovo Minister of Culture stated that the state will offer a dynamic aid to country's award-winning movie industry. Do you think that this will galvanize that in a better way in the near future?
I hope so. I mean, first, we're not nominated yet, but thanks for saying. Maybe we will. The more we mention it, maybe we will. So thank you.
Let me be clairvoyant, inshallah, as we say. Anyway.
But yes, I mean, everybody's really happy about Hive. I mean, in general, it really inspired people, and I hope it's inspired the younger filmmakers to like continue and work, because it is hard to make. I mean, it's hard to make films anywhere in the world because it takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of right people to get together, and then the right funding and this and that. And then you have to time it well so that it comes out and it's like a relevant story to tell. But in countries like ours, of course, we have, I mean, we can't even talk about private funding for now, because there's no interest at all from private fundings to like support films. They do support, but in like, let's say, in services and smaller things, but not like really people who invest in films. So we basically rely mostly on public funding, and which is a very low budget. I mean, the Cinematography Center of Kosovo does a really good job selecting projects and selecting the good, like you're selecting because you have a good script, and it's really a just system of doing that. But then you get really very low support from them because they have a small budget, not because they don't want to support you. Yes, the minister wants to support. The film has encouraged even more the politicians to raise the budget. So they're doubling the budget of the center from next year. And of course, that's not enough again, but they are promising that they will continue to raise the budget because there is a need to make more films. There's been a lot of films, especially this year, that traveled to really big festivals, and almost every film was in an A-list festival and got an award. So in that sense, it's like we're producing usually one film a year, sometimes two or three, but like mostly like of one film a year. And that's not enough. I think we have a lot to say. I think we need to talk about a lot of things. And I think people are understanding that through film, it's a really good way to talk about our past and our present and raise discussion, and even I don't know, raise an unpleasantness to certain people, but just really it raises a discussion about who agrees and disagrees with certain things, and in that way we talk about it. And I think the more and more people are understanding how important it is to invest in films. And luckily they will. In terms of private funding, I don't know. I think it will take some time, but hopefully with Hive and a lot of other films succeeding, private investors will understand that there is, I mean, there will be a reward if you invest in a film. So let's see how that works.
Surely this does, like you say, raise awareness about the powerful impact of this kind of storytelling. And I do want to ask you about, I recall how last year when I was writing actually about Ko Vadi Saida, Jasna Žbanjic's film, which was also in this Oscar season, much talked about how a lot of extras and people who worked on the film were saying how they were so honored and happy to contribute because they felt that they were, well, a lot of them actually lived really through this stuff. And it was both easier and more difficult for them to participate, but it was part of history making, about the history that happened. I wanted to ask you about how did you have a similar feeling or conversations with your team members, people who worked on this film? And was it cathartic for them in a way? Was it like a new way of bonding between them over this story, which is based on a real story, of course. And so also, how did this film change you?
I think we did. I mean, because of COVID, we didn't really get a chance to get together a lot to talk about films. It was usually through smaller meetings to get the actors' impressions on how are they feeling about the whole process, especially after Sundance. But I mean, we haven't gotten nominated yet, but everybody's really, really super proud and excited what happened with Hive so far, and how this story and how people are hearing about Kosovo and about our stories, and especially because it's the story of these women who it's an inspiring story at the end of the day, and their story is being heard by the whole world. So basically not just the team members, but everyone I meet. I mean, people are recognizing me in the street and kind of are really proud and happy, and that really makes me feel really good, and really it feels like it was really important, the whole journey, more than just for us, more than just for me as a filmmaker. Of course, for me, it changed a lot. It like really opened a lot of doors, but in general, it's really such a good feeling for the whole crew, whoever's been just as the smallest part of the crew, even the forensic doctor who helped us. He's so proud and happy, and he texts me and he's like, I just really feel like a really big part of this film. I'm so happy for you. And I'm like, you are a big part of this film because you helped us with very important information and detail and provided us with props for like forensic people. So in that sense, really makes me happy and exciting, and brought us together even while we were shooting, because people were really a lot of people witnessed a lot, and a lot of crew members were witnessed the war. So when we were doing war scenes, you didn't even have to tell people that they should be quiet because there's an emotional scene, because everybody was in the mood when they were see remains of bodies. Although it was production design, people really felt like they've seen a real scene, and sometimes didn't even feel comfortable, unfortunately, because it would bring back memories for someone who they've lost, or maybe they want to identify someone of their own, or a lot of these kind of things in a way really brought back memories. But I think especially with the women actresses, it was a lot about really honoring these women. So when we were rehearsing, we did all the rehearsals the way table reading and on-set rehearsals, but it was a lot about talking on how can we really portray and how can we really support each other on set the way they supported each other in real life, and so that the audience feels that we're not just acting, that we are friends and working together, but we need to feel that beautiful energy that these women have in real life. And we're not going to feel it if you guys don't really like each other and love each other and support each other in performing. And they really were very willing to do it. And it was such a joy to work with all of them and with the whole crew in a way, because everybody just really, it was, I can say it was a smooth shooting, although shooting a film is always hard, and sometimes it was hot, sometimes it was nice, sometimes we had to throw you kind of water. So it wasn't easy film, but just in terms of like working with everybody was really loving the story, wanting to honor their story and wanting to be part of a good part of it, and really did their best, everyone in their own department.
And I know that you have a lot of interviews today, and in general in this time, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. I want to ask you two more questions. I read recently that in the US, Zeitgeist Film is distributing film in association with Kino Lorber, and it's now playing in the select US theaters. Will continue to expand nationwide. Regardless of what happens with the Oscars, it has made a tremendous success. What are the plans for the film in the near future?
Well, the film is going to continue to show in a lot of cinemas, not only in US, but in Germany and in UK. Right now we're working on the campaign, so that was the biggest thing we were doing about it. But and the film is still playing in Kosovo. But starting from February, the film is being released in online in US, so it's going to be available in a lot of streaming platforms for people to rent it as VOD, as SVOD, and many other options. Soon, Zeitgeist is going to announce it, and Zeitgeist and Kino Lorber are going to announce it, and we're also working on the press releases for that part as well.
That's amazing. Well, we already announced it.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we could put this on. It's so excited, so happy to hear that. Well, Blerta, this podcast is called Dignified Resilience, and that is what Fahrije represents so amazingly. I was so happy to see her photo at the end of the film, so that I could now connect the real woman with the story, and by showing it, so many could both look up to her as a role model, learn with humility, as I always say. And it reminded me of a lot of women who I know from my life. I spent early part of my life in Pristina. I have some beautiful memories when you were showing how they were doing Ivar. It just brought tears to my eyes. I used to do that with my grandma, and so many other things. So I haven't been there in a while. Looking forward to, inshallah, when COVID allows us. Thank you so much for putting this story on a screen. I wish you so much success. And is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners and viewers? See, my voice is starting to tremble when I think about that part of my life as well. Just one more thing. When you were starting to say how your then boyfriend saw it on the news, it reminded me also about the importance of good journalism. Because some journalists made that story and put it on TV, and then your boyfriend, husband saw it, and so it's a chain of good people doing good work, putting it out there. And I hope that this episode also contributes a little bit to bringing more visibility to your work and this amazing story. Is there anything else you want to say to us before we wrap it up?
Yeah, no, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's really interesting that we're both from Pristina and that we got to do this talk. As I said, for me, it's really important that people hear about this story. Fahrije is an inspiring story to me. She's still an inspiration every time I meet her. So I hope people will get to see the film, hear about her story, and be inspired by her, because if she could do it, we all can do it. So I think we should just really always remind ourselves of people like Fahrije, who, besides everything, she continued and she decided to move on. So I think we should all try to find that strength, even with sometimes we don't have it, but we should try to find it and be able to move on. So thank you for having me in your podcast.
Of course. And to all our people in the audience, please feel free to share this. Now you know that you're going to be able to see the film very soon if you're in the United States. And stay tuned for more conversations with people from all over the globe. Hold tight to those you love, and see you soon.